Hello everybody! Welcome to another episode of the Vesper's Retro Reviews. I'm Ramsis.
And I'm Vesper.
And today we're going to review the A-Team. More specifically, the pilot episode that started it all. We're big fans of the A-Team. Well, most of its seasons at any rate. And it's a show that is definitely one we want to look at again here. Before we can look at each of the 5 seasons that the show produced, we decided that in order to get a better idea of the history and full background of the show, we'll just start by reviewing the pilot episode that started it all. So, to start off our A-Team review, we bring you the pilot episode. So, The Vesper, why don't you give us some background history on the pilot episode of the TV series, The A-Team, and get things going here.
Alright, so the pilot episode of the A-Team premiered on January 23rd, 1983 on NBC, Sunday at 9 p.m. Now, the pilot had no title at this time. It was just called The A-Team and was 2 hours long. The show itself was not expected to become a hit and was being used as a mid-season replacement. The A-Team was created by writers and producers Stephen J. Cannell and Frank Lupo as NBC Entertainment President Brandon Tartikoff wanted them to come up with something he had an idea for to put on his network. Now, Stephen J. Cannell was recently fired from ABC before due to his lack of creating any successful long-term running shows. Tartikoff pitched the idea of the A-Team to Cannell by calling it a mixture of Dirty Dozen, The Magnificent Seven, The Road Warrior, and Mission Impossible, with just a touch of interactions based around the off-center characters from Hill Street Blues, and the most important aspect of Mr. T will drive the car.
The funny thing to note here is that even with Tartikoff pitching this to his writers, he didn't expect this show to be a runaway hit in its first 3 seasons. It was made to be a fun, action-packed, get-your-blood-pumping cartoon type of character show. But George Peppard, who plays main character Hannibal Smith, predicted the show would be a huge hit before they even started filming. And, of course, as history shows, he was right. But more on that in a bit. Let's talk a little bit more about the history of this pilot here. We learn pretty much what the A-Team is in this pilot episode, but things change a bit and we get more information from the opening credits, which do not appear in this particular episode, by the way.
Alright, so Ramses, tell me, is there a meaning for the word A-Team?
The term A-Team is actually a military term that is short for Alpha Team. This would be the first team sent in during missions with Special Forces. They would be the first team to engage the enemy, and then the B Team, or the Bravo Team, would be sent in shortly after. And it's fitting as this team is made of former Vietnam soldiers who were sent on special missions together as a unit. While it's not clear if they themselves were an A-Team during the war at any point, it is fitting seeing they are pretty much the go-to group that you send in when you want to get something done properly. So the A-Team acronym actually had a few meanings. It's a war term, and it's pretty much what they are, and they're their last choice and the first and only team that you're going to send in there. So that brings us to, what is this show, the A-Team, actually about? Before we talk about the pilot, we should explain what the show is about, I think. The long and the short of it is, 4 male members of the A-Team are all former Vietnam War soldiers, part of a crack commando unit. They were arrested by military officers for committing a crime that they didn't willingly commit. In 1972, their commanding officer sent them to rob the Bank of Hanoi of its gold bullion, and it was supposed to be part of a covert mission, but before they could return with the gold bullion, the commander who sent them on this private mission was killed, and no record that it was an official mission by the military was ever made. So, the A-Team were sent to prison for this crime. They promptly escaped and are now hiding in the 1980s version of Los Angeles, where they formed a group called the A-Team, a group of former soldiers who will work for pay to take care of problems that no one else can, and they will do this by any means necessary. And thus, we have what the show is about. The pilot episode will establish a few running themes like catchphrases that the characters will say.
Love jazz. I love it when a plan comes together.
The military police constantly pursuing the A-Team, and the A-Team conniving and using their manipulation skills to have others believe that they are the people who they really aren't, so they can get what they need without having to pay money to do it.
Now, a lot of you may not remember, but the A-Team had 5 main hero characters originally, and they all are introduced in this pilot episode. But one of the actors would be changed for the next episode, as the 5th member of the A-Team would be removed later in the 2nd season.
That's right, Vesper. So the show actually had some changes throughout its lifespan, which we'll look at more in depth when we delve into each season separately. But before we can discuss the pilot episode itself, let's look at who played the main roles of each character for this pilot episode. We already have mentioned a few of the names here, so now we can build further upon it. Every team needs a leader, and for the A-Team, it is Colonel John Hannibal Smith, and he is portrayed by longtime movie and TV series actor George Peppard, who beat out many in auditions to land the role of the titular star.
Now, George Peppard would be a main reason for so many of the problems and shakeups on the show over the years, but he believed in the show from day one. It truly shows in each and every scene he did. In the pilot episode, he got more screen time than any of the other actors and actresses. But as the series went on, each and every member of the A-Team would get more than enough time to shine on screen. Now, Hannibal Smith would be played as a calculating and strategic leader who always had a plan he liked when it came together. In the pilot episode, we see him playing the role of a B-movie monster on the Universal Studios lot, and it's something he would do in many other episodes to follow. Also, his alter ego of Mr. Lee was the owner of a Chinese laundromat who would look out for potential clients for the A-Team to hire before they'd make first contact to vet them. Next, we have Mr. T, who would also be a main focus of the show as mentioned, and he definitely did more than just drive the iconic van, which doesn't show up in the main pilot episode, by the way. To get him to be part of the main team for this show was another reason that led to the success of the series, believe it or not. Mr. T played Sergeant Bosco Albert B.A. Baracus, with the BA being bad attitude. He was the brawn and mechanic of the team, and in the pilot he didn't get much time in the episode, but some of his usual running themes of being good with kids, as he was seen as a hero of the neighborhood, and being afraid to fly on airplanes was established here. The team would often have to knock out BA to get him on an airplane, and that was established right from the start, though in later seasons they'd have a lot more fun with. So tell us about the next character, Ramses.
Alright, our third main character is played by Dwight Schultz, and he plays Captain H.M. Howling Mad Murdoch. And we actually never get to find out what Murdoch's actual name is. He's just called Howling Mad or Murdoch for the series run. And the character is interesting to note, as he was put away in the mental institution after his time at Vietnam, so he has to constantly be broken out by the other members of the A-Team whenever they needed him, which will turn out to be in every single episode, as he's a main character of the series. He's a top-notch pilot who can fly on any aircraft, as will be done in this episode, as well with him flying various vehicles that the team will utilize. The character originally was going to be removed after he appeared in this pilot episode, but fans loved the crazy character and became a major foil to Mr. T's B.A. Baracus character. In most episodes, he would also have something associated with his being insane occurring, either a fake character or animal he's talking to during the run of the episode, or even an alter ego he's taken the role of for the episode, much to the annoyance of B.A., and a lot of their relationship was established in this pilot episode as well, with B.A. and Murdoch not getting along at all. Their relationship would improve over the seasons, but it was always B.A. getting mad at something that Murdoch said or was doing. Alright, so the fourth main character of our team is Lieutenant Templeton Faceman Peck, who in the pilot was played by Tim Dunnigan. Yep, you heard it right. Faceman was played by Mr. Dunnigan for this episode. And this would be one of the biggest changes made to the series after this pilot episode. Face is pretty much the conman, the accountant, and the playboy of the team. He would often get things done behind the scenes. If they need a vehicle, or they need a hotel, or they need supplies that no one else can get, he would get them, and by whatever means possible. Usually by portraying someone phony to trick people with his good looks and acting skills. The character, starting with the episode after the pilot, would be portrayed by Dirk Benedict. So, why did they use Dunnigan here only to change him quickly after? Well, it appears that the network, for whatever unknown reason, really did not want to use Dirk Benedict in the role, even though it was written with Dirk in mind for the part. So the powers that be selected Tim Dunnigan instead. Now, I want it stated, Tim Dunnigan is a fine actor, and had a very different yet still effective take on the part of Faceman in the pilot. The main problem, from what people can tell, is Tim Dunnigan looks way too young to have served in Vietnam with the rest of the cast. The network execs agreed with that, and series creator Lupo and Canal, after the pilot, got Dirk Benedict brought in to portray Peck just as they always wanted, and he would remain with the cast for the rest of the series run.
As was mentioned earlier, there are 5 members of the A-Team, and that 5th amazing member would be Amy Amanda Allen, AAA, portrayed by Melinda Kulia, as some may or may not remember if you haven't seen the show in a while.
Amy Allen's role in the show is as a newspaper reporter for Los Angeles. She learns about the A-Team and winds up being the one who will hire them for this first pilot episode, as she needs them to rescue a co-worker of hers who has been missing in Mexico as he is assumed kidnapped by outlaws there. After the mission, she cons her way into joining the team as their behind-the-scenes member, as well as playing the role of the innocent and harmless female figure that the team needs when they want to take a different approach on getting information or learning who they're dealing with. We'll talk more about her leaving the show during the second season when we get to that.
Also introduced in this episode would be a constant villain to the A-Team, Colonel Lynch, who is portrayed by William Lucking. He is a military officer pursuing the A-Team that would change over the seasons. Most of you will probably remember Colonel Decker, since he was the longest running air quote villain trying to capture them. But for the pilot and many other episodes, it would be Colonel Lynch who would be personally assigned to capture and apprehend the A-Team so they could be returned to custody for stealing the gold in Vietnam.
So that would become a focus of a lot of the episodes to follow. It wouldn't just be the A-Team having to take on the baddies, it would be them also having to avoid capture by the military. And they would rotate out who the main adversary was, but it was always the same idea. They'd be hot on the trail, the A-Team would have to figure out how to avoid them, and go back to them pursuing the bad guys in the process. So it wouldn't be every episode, so it didn't get old fast, but that was another annoyance. That was a very common theme of every A-Team episode, them having to deal with the military also pursuing them while all this is going on. And well, there you have it, folks. That's our setup for how the pilot came to be, what the show is about, and the main characters that appeared in this episode. Now, with all that out of the way, let's look at this pilot episode in great detail and see how everything for the A-Team started way back in 1983.
Now, let's talk about the A-Team, which would be later named Mexican Slayride for the pilot episode. And so it begins in the town of San Rio Bianco. Reporter Al Massey is kidnapped by a group of bandits led by the evil and dastardly Malvida Valdez, not to be confused with a certain ship. After learning of the disappearance, AAA herself, Amy Amanda Allen, seeks assistance from the A-Team. Now, before we go on with this, I do want to make a few quick notes about the opening, and that is basically it is a very slow intro to what's going on. I mean, you see all these panning shots of this, and one panning shot is more than enough to show you that this town of San Rio Bianco is a very small, rural, and incredibly fearful town of Valdez himself.
And we don't get back to this town until the second part. This is a 2-hour pilot, we should mention, by the way. So they're building up this Mexican trip we're going to be taking. We don't even get there until the second part of the episode.
And our favorite character here, Amy Amanda Allen, AAA, starts building up the A-Team, talking about old past stories, saying supposed to be horrendously bad, yet everybody else in like LA is going, oh no, they always help us, they're great people, but nobody seems to listen.
So yeah, that was it. It just kept building up, and finally, I guess after the commercial break or whatever they would do here, we got to the first scene where we finally meet one of the members of the A-Team. And as I mentioned, Hannibal's going to get a lot of play in this episode. He was the big star, he was the leader of the team, and they start right with him. It's going to be Hannibal showing what job he was doing on the side, and what was the name of that movie he was doing? So that'll be another running gag in the show. He's going to be the Aquamaniac, which is as B monster as you can get. It's this horrible rubber suit, and he's just some weird lizard creature. But yeah, Hannibal, the leader of the A-Team, that's his side job, playing the Aquamaniac. So yes, Face shows up, and again, it's Dunnigan playing Face in this episode. So he shows up and warns Hannibal, uh-oh, the military is after us. And then again, this will be a running theme in most episodes. Colonel Lynch shows up, and now we're going to learn right away what the A-Team's all about. So they have to outsmart them. They have to get away from them. How are they going to do this? They're at Universal Studios, so I guess it's kind of a double advertising here because it's made by Universal Pictures, this episode. So they're going to go through the whole tour of the Universal Studios tour while the military is chasing around. Face is trying to get Hannibal out of there while he was trying to film a movie, and then they go through one of the props where all the water shoots up into the sky, and of course Hannibal's waving him on. He's like, come on get me.
It's like an episode of Looney Tunes. He's daring him to shoot across this nice little valley in between the two lakes that can fill up if he pulls the lever. Right. So he's like getting farther and farther away, daring him to do it. And finally, Colonel Lynch is like, I got him now. And they zoom, and then of course...
And he pulls the lever, and what do you think happens? Oh, water comes everywhere. So remember what we said, it's supposed to be a little cartoonish. And of course they get away. He's, I'll get you next time, the usual stuff. While the beginning itself is a slow start, I think once they introduce Hannibal, things get a little better in this show.
Oh, absolutely. And because of this, we'll set up another trope of the A-Team. The mysterious meetings and being vetted
Yep, that'll be another running theme in every episode. How do you hire the A-Team? Well, you can't just pick up the phone, you can't just contact them. You got to be vetted, and they have to approve you, because they're confirming that you're not working for the military, that you're not up to something, that you really are who you say you are, and that you have the money. Because, believe it or not, they are working as mercenaries pretty much. You have to pay them for their services, but that'll change a little bit too, which we'll get to in future seasons.
But also in other episodes, some of the people that do try to hire them are actually working for the military.
Yep.
So they do not just keep it one way. It's mixed up.
Yep.
Speaking of people that Hannibal Smith likes to play with Mr. Lee, you'll also get to see his homeless guy that he likes to play every now and then as well. And this episode, since the pilot, she goes through at least 2 layers of vetting here with the homeless man and Mr. Lee.
So the vetting process would be a big deal to show, and I think in this one they really stretch it out. It should be noted that you won't see Mr. Lee a lot in many future episodes. So every episode will have a mention of I talked to Mr. Lee, but they pretty much don't even do that in future episodes. It's assumed that he was Mr. Lee at the time and that he led them to the next step in the process to vet them.
And now let's talk about the next character they introduced, which would be Howling Mad Murdoch.
So they established right away that he's going to be in this institution, this mental asylum, and it's never really established, is he crazy, is he not? The assumption is he is a little off, but that he's really putting on the act to avoid being captured. But he's definitely not totally there, but you can see that he's definitely not totally normal either. But I don't think it's as bad as it's made out to be, because I think that's on purpose. To avoid capture, he's playing it up a little worse than it really is.
To give an example, he's talking about ammonia a lot. Well, he talked about so much that he convinced the nursing staff and doctors that this was his trigger word to make him go into an aggressive stance and want to fight you. A big theme that's played throughout the entire series is that Murdoch is just outsmarting everyone.
VA believes the man's insane. The rest of the team, I think they're onto him, but whatever, it works. He's avoiding capture, and they get him out every single time. So most of the times, they'll do exactly what they did in this episode to get Murdoch out. They send Face disguised as some important person, and that seemed to be a running gag too in 18 that people don't talk about. It's always Face disguised as somebody. He'll show up disguised as a doctor or a military person or someone famous that needs his help.
Of course, later on in other seasons, they do mix it up quite a bit more. Yeah.
So I like the introduction of the Murdoch character here, and he played it great. The military showed up to try to get him out, and he was talking about ammonia. He was standing on the counters, don't go near me. And they really believed it, that he was crazy because he kept throwing the word ammonia. And who could make the word ammonia funny except for Murdoch? It worked very well.
And when AAA went to go see him, Murdoch started shaving his head.
It was actually a very good use of the character, and he's funny. I like him. I think Dwight Schultz is one of the best parts of the show. I actually enjoyed it a lot, and he established himself right from the start here. The character pretty much didn't change from what we saw in the pilot.
And too bad in later series of other television shows, he gets to play a piece of broccoli, wasn't it?
I don't think so. Good. I look forward to your report, Mr. Broccoli. Barclay.
So now we have 3 members of the A-Team where we know what their careers are, and we have 2 team members left.
This being the pilot, you have to introduce a little bit about their backgrounds. So, Face is shown early on, after warning Hannibal in the original chase scene, disguising himself as a Catholic priest as he goes to visit Father McGill. And in this scene, you come to learn that Face is actually a orphan. And then immediately after this, we go into BA repairing a skateboard for a group of boys. Now, this is the first time that you get to see Mr. T working with kids and seeing that, BA is also good with kids. And apparently in the pilot episode, not much after that, he's also quite a philosopher and has quite a bit to say about people.
As we mentioned, the show was built around the idea that BA was going to be driving them everywhere, but the character changed, and for the better. I think he wasn't used well in the pilot at all. He didn't say much, he didn't do much, he didn't have his iconic van. When they introduced the van in the next episode, that's when BA really takes on his persona. He's very protective of the van, he's not afraid of anything.
After we've introduced BA and Face, we see that they need to get to Mexico, because Amy has shown up, by the way, and lied to them about having enough money. They don't discover this until they're halfway to Mexico. But the A-Team, being the good guys, are like, all right, fine. She's going to promise us more money later.
Yep.
Of course, she lies.
That's part of the show. That's how she joins the team. I guess that doesn't even matter. The mission was more important than money, and that's another thing that'll be established with the show. It's not only about the money, it is about the mission too, when they really can get behind it and believe in it.
Going on with that, they have to get to Mexico. So, Face will go in disguised as Joe Bob Jameson, and Murdoch will be Buster Hawthorne. And they will use this duo to basically fool a plane company to allow them to take out and try out a new plane.
And this will be another running gag. They'll do this. They'll just put on a disguise. They'll walk into someone and say, we're X or we're Q, whatever. We're just a random person. We need it for whatever. And they convince them. That's pretty much what they do. But I will say that was one of the downsides of Tim Dunnigan's portrayal. I think this is where Dirk Benedict really shined. When Dirk Benedict played these characters in later episodes, and we'll talk about that when we do later seasons, he was great. He was so believable. He was like so genuine and so
suave.
Suave. Yes, he was very suave. But Tim Dunnigan, not right for this part. He really overacted. When he's supposed to be this face man, this con man, he's not portraying the position just right. So I see why they replaced him for, besides the age, I see that he just wasn't capturing the feel of the character right. And Dirk Benedict, as they said all along, was exactly who they had in mind for this part.
Now, while this is going on, they have to get BA onto a plane. Now, this is where you first see that BA will not have anything to do with flying. So, they go with the idea that he has anxiety headaches. So, this is to explain why he starts to black out whenever he goes onto a plane, because he's so fearful of flying, when in truth, it's Novocaine and a shot to the neck.
And that's another running gag. He always says that. You're not getting me on a plane. You're not going to do this again. To the camera, Hannibal's showing Novocaine as he's spitting the label out of the bottle. They're already getting it ready to use on him. It's a little silly and wacky, but again, that's the flair of the show. And yeah, that's how they get him on a plane. And again, that'll be a running gag, but they change the reasons for why he doesn't like a plane. I think sometimes they say it's because of Murdoch's flying, and other times they say it's because he had something happen in Vietnam. So the reason sort of changes of why BA doesn't like it. All we know is that he doesn't like it, and that's going to become a very big problem for them whenever they have to get somewhere that's not within the LA area. They have to figure out how to get BA onto an airplane.
As they taxi out of the airport, Lynch shows up in just enough time to see them fly away. So now we move on to the fact that they've now arrived in Mexico. BA comes too, and boy, is he pissed, and has to cope with the fact that he passed out for those 26 hours, which seems to be even hard for BA to swallow at the time.
And to realistically believe that he would go along with this is really suspending belief.
Yep, and now we make it to the hotel, where Face poses as a 20th Century Fox producer with Murdoch in tow. Hannibal takes BA and Amy to a bar where they are researching the phone number they found in Massey's notes before coming here.
And this scene will set up what we're going to see a lot in the 18 episodes. Face and usually one of the other guys will come up with some way to con their way into a situation. And this is definitely where, unfortunately, Tim Dunnigan is not a very good face. When you see Dirk Benedict doing this, it is so believable, so great. And unfortunately, Dunnigan's not as good as it. But it gives the idea of the character. They're going to try to con their way in. And of course, they believe it. Every time when they're saying, yeah, we're producers from, we need this, they set it right up. And that's pretty much what the feel of the show is going to be. So they get this hotel, they have the representative in the Mexican hotel who's working directly with 20th Century Fox Studio. They believe they're filming a movie. It's ridiculous, but yeah, I guess we have to go along with it.
Also, while they're at the bar, they go off and show BA being the total bad attitudinal problem he is, and gets in a fight, and surprisingly, they actually lose the fight at the end and are captured. And they come to find out that Manny Cortez isn't a bad guy. Manny Cortez was working with Massey in this whole problem involving Rio Blanco.
And yeah, that's the big bad, who we'll find out later. So it's a whole who's who. We don't know who's good, who's bad. We're supposed to think that Manny Cortez is the bad guy. No, he's actually fighting the rebels trying to stop the big bad. So they capture the A-Team, and of course it turns out they're actually good guys. So they assist them by telling where they can find them. And they come up with this interesting scheme where they're going to use Murdoch's flying abilities. They're going to fly a crop plane over the crops of the baddies. And what do you think they're going to do? They're going to poison the crops, which I don't know how well this would work. They're going to drop poison on their crops and then drop propaganda flyers saying pretty much, haha, we got you, you lose, pretty much is what it came down to. It's again, a little silly.
And this is the plan they came up with Manny Cortez to do. So, of course, since it's the A-Team, they absolutely know how to make the bad guys absolutely furious to the point that they will charge headlong into a trap, which this is, by the way. This is where we learn the true power of the A-Team. The 80s montage. Grab a hold of one of the Contra's trucks, and they turn it into a rolling tank, basically.
This show is very MacGyver-like. They'll take anything that's all destroyed and wrecked, You just put BA on it and he'll turn it into whatever you need it. That's like pretty much was BA's ability. He'll turn anything into anything. He can fix anything, and there you go. He turned a bus into a military tank.
And the best part about all this, while this is going on, Manny Cortez managed to convince the townspeople to help them in their stopping of Flores and Valdez. Toot.
So Valdez and his troops, how dare they? We're gonna get them. They come charging in all various army jeeps, but it's the A-team, so of course they have a plan to counter the plan.
The A-team with Hannibal at the lead does some fancy footwork, does some good stunts, shows the bad guys what's what, and they capture them, only to see what they think is the army coming to take them away, when in truth it's actually a bandit lord or a Contra led by Colonel Flores, who's trying to overthrow the government.
And this is the real big bad. He's a drug kingpin. This is who's been behind it all along. So it's another who's who, which was an interesting twist in this episode. They've done this stuff before in later episodes, but it was interesting that in the pilot they did you don't realize who's really behind what. So we had the double cross where it really wasn't Manny Cortez. He was a good guy. It really isn't Valdez. He's working for someone else. And we find out Colonel Flores is the real big bad here. He's trying to overtake the government. He has this whole thing with drugs and money making, and he's the one that's been funding all these bandits to take over these towns so that he can control the whole drug empire.
Yes, and the drug that's going to take over Mexico and allow him to win is marijuana, by the way.
I got some stuff you just gotta try. What is it? Pot. You know, marijuana. Oh, well, I don't know. What, chicken?
Joey's in a jam. What should he do? Get a pizza.
You got it. Let's see if Joey's that smart.
I'm not chicken. You're a turkey.
Drug dealers are dorks. Don't even talk to them.
Cowabunga!
Ah, yes, of course. In the 80s, don't forget, marijuana was the worst drug you can mention. Forget all the other drugs, marijuana, and yeah, that's pretty much what's going on here. So it's a lot of twists and turns. They think they have Valdez, but then when Flores' troops show up, we realize, things just got a lot worse, and now we're captured, and now we're taken to Flores to find out what's really everything's behind.
Now that the A-team is captured, the bad guys go into their wonderful thing that all bad guys in the 80s did, I dare say into the 90s and early 2000s, of monologuing why they're doing what they're doing.
You can't get rid of him now. Where's the fun of that? You need to explain your whole plan to him. Don't you have a nemesis?
Me? The world is my nemesis!
Do your worst, Doctor. I will. First, a little presentation. Phase 1, choosing the right drill bit. The industry standard is a roller. Phase 7, permitting and zoning. Huge headache.
And upon being taken into captivity, they come across the missing Al Massey and find out what's been going on and why he's doing what he did. As with the A-team, Hannibal comes up with a plan this time.
And it's a very simple plan, and it's like, wow, is that really gonna work? Yep, it's gonna work. Plays another one of his acting roles. They really played up on him being an actor, so he's playing all different parts. This time he's gonna play a delirious man. He's all out of it, he's all dope, he's all crazy, he needs help. So the guard, of course, falls for it. They open the gate, they knock him out and escape. You know how that all goes. But it was funny. It's fun to see Hannibal in so many different roles here. And they would play up on that in future episodes where he's gonna play a lot of parts. So it's fun that in the pilot, they established right away that he is an actor and can handle all these different roles and disguises. So yeah, so now the action's really gonna start. This is the final battle is really gonna happen here. Here it is. It's been all building up to this. This is what the A-team's about, this final confrontation. Because almost every single episode has that final confrontation. This is where it always takes place, at the end of the episode, and the pilot's the same thing. They have the huge battle at the end of the episode.
And they really play it up because the chase ends with them in a helicopter chasing them down a long stretch of road and jumping from a helicopter into the Jeep and a fight.
It's fun for what it is. How does it all end out? Obviously, the good guys win, A-team helps everyone. So yep, it's pretty much, it's a weird, ambiguous ending. The baddies are left with the local town folks to handle them. We don't know what that means. Do they kill them? Do they arrest them? Do they send them to the authorities?
Well, Ramses, I'm going to point this out. Every one of them was carrying either a shotgun or a machete, and they didn't look too happy with these two individuals.
So I have a feeling we never see these guys ever again, and we don't feel bad after what they did to all these people. So yes, whatever they get, they deserve. It should be noted before we finish is that the A-team was notorious for not allowing any deaths. There's deaths that happen, but it's usually either off-screen or like only one time someone will die, and in one of the seasons we'll mention when that happens. But yes, the A-team was very notorious for all the violence and the explosions and the shooting, but no one ever died. So that was the same here.
And they're also very bad about not giving any closure to a story. For example, at the end of this episode, after everything's all said and done, AAA offers an ultimatum to the team, basically telling them either you allow me to help you in an official manner, or I publish a book on what you are and that you are actually not an underground myth.
And pretty much it's an offer they can't refuse. She's now part of the team just like that.
But what we do know is this. They had to put BA back to sleep with the help of AAA at the airport where Colonel Lynch is waiting for them. However, unlike all the tricky things they do in the past to outsmart Lynch in this episode alone, Hannibal just simply walks out and knocks him out before stuffing him into the back of a car.
They'll be more established later on, but for a pilot, that's fun. I think it's silly but fun. There you go. That's the first episode of the A-Team. So there you go.
Trailerless and all. But wait, there's more.
That's right. Now that we talked about what the pilot's about, we gave our thoughts on some of the moments. We'll go a little more detail here about some aspects of the pilot itself that we want to analyze.
Well, to me, the pilot episode, it was 2 hours. And for the most part, a standard episode of the A-Team, at least for the first 4 seasons. Followed all the hit points, but it was stretched out to last 2 hours instead of 1 hour. So they had to fill everything in with something. And it slowed the episode down tremendously. At least that's what I felt.
Yeah, I thought it was a good start. I'll talk a little bit more about my overall feeling of the episode, but I can imagine if I watched this when it was happening, I would be excited. They had me. This is like, wow, this is what a TV show is about? Yeah, pretty much is everything Tartikoff said would be in the show. So, something, I think it was fun. There's some corny moments. We'll go more into detail of review in a bit. But yeah, I think this pilot episode's off to a good start. I think they got something special here.
Now, let's talk about some of the things that we'll see later from this episode. We've got the whole every trope set that you'll see in a future A-Team episode shown in this one episode. And it also showed us a lot of the opening scenes that we'll see now in the second episode of it.
Right, so if you're always wondering, gee, where are all these scenes coming from? You watch the opening credits, it's very iconic, by the way. Pretty much the opening credits use a lot of moments for the first 3 seasons at least, use moments right from this pilot. All right, first I want to talk about the changing of the face character, and I think it was the right decision. After watching this pilot episode, I want to talk about Tim Dunnigan's performance a little bit. I think he is a good actor. I have no problem with his acting, but he did not capture the character right, and that's very sad, but that's how it goes in this business. I can see why they wanted Dirk Benedict so badly. Dirk Benedict is the perfect face. I can't think of anyone else ever to take that role. I think that there was too many times where Dunnigan was overacting it. He wasn't capturing the feel of this suave and manipulative man. He was just too by the book, too young anyways. And it's sad, but that's how it goes. I think he wasn't the best part of this episode, but he didn't hurt the episode. Let's put it that way. I think some of the stuff that hurt the episode was that some of the stuff was a little too cartoony, a little too over-the-top ridiculous. And you'll find that in a lot of A-Team episodes anyway, so that's expected throughout the series. But the pilot really went overboard. So there was a lot of stuff that was a little schlocky here.
But Ramses, you know what they didn't go over the top with?
What's that?
One bullet did not cause a car to explode.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to do at least 4 out of the 5 seasons. And we'll notice that one bullet will destroy a vehicle. That didn't really happen here. That becomes more of a running trope in later episodes. So they didn't have the van in this episode. They didn't have the vehicles exploding. They had vehicles flipping, as we mentioned, but they didn't have the vehicles exploding. I think the pilot was very interesting. It built a lot of things. You had all their sayings here. You had BA not wanting to be on the plane. You had Murdoch acting crazy for the whole thing. The military chasing after them. They used the term, he's on the jazz. That means Hannibal's coming up with one of his plans again. He's getting all excited. And he also says, I love it when a plan comes together. That's another thing that he says here. So there's a lot of themes that were built in this pilot that will be through almost every single episode, at least for the first 4 seasons. The 5th season is different. But for 4 seasons, a lot of stuff that was established in this one episode are going to show up in almost every single episode for the next 4 seasons. That was pretty good.
I'm going to agree with a lot of what you said there, actually. This was the foundation, the base for everything that comes after it for at least 4 seasons of this. And it is marvelous. It's, yes, formulaic, but it makes it fun because it's so formulaic. You know what's going to happen, and because of this, when they throw in the double blind, like with Flores is the actual boss and not Valdez. So you don't see that coming, and they still manage to keep you interested in wanting to see it because while they use the same formula, how they do it is totally different for each and every episode. I also think that it's very fun. And I also think the addition of AAA is not bad. She does not take away from the series. Now we'll go into what happens to her later in another season, but for the most part, she's just another asset for the A-Team to use to help them accomplish their goals. And that's not a bad thing at all.
It's nice to have a female perspective on things. It's nice to have her as a newspaper reporter that you can use for so many different aspects that the A-Team shouldn't be able to do on their own. I think Amy was great. I don't know what other people think. You can let us know in the comments if you thought Amy was good or not and your memories of her.
And so, with that being said, what would you rate this, Ramses? Out of 5 stars.
All right, so we're going to review just the pilot episode here. Just that's it, not the whole first season, just this pilot episode. I think that it was off to a great start. I think I would have been very excited watching this if I actually caught it. Didn't actually catch the pilot when it was originally shown, so I can't have that honor. I think it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. There were some slow parts at the beginning. It was a little wacky and silly at times. All the characters were established very well here. The idea of the show is established very well. I'm going to say 3.5 stars. I really think it's one of the better pilots. There's been many pilots out there that I've watched that are garbage and the show becomes so much better from it, or that just where it's totally different from what the show was. The only real difference in this pilot was a different actor playing Face. That's really the only difference. Besides that, the show is pretty much exactly the same when they do the next episode after this. I enjoyed it. It only gets better from here, and yeah, it's off to a great start. I wish more pilots had this great start.
My thoughts on this is that this is the pilot. Sometimes pilots are good, sometimes pilots are bad. But I believe that this was a 3.5 stars. This was well better than average. It wasn't the best. There are some episodes later that are much worse than this. But I thought it was 3.5 only because of the fact that for about first hour, I was bored. Yes, the last half of it, the last hour, was great. Last half of it was terrific. It felt like an A-Team episode, and that part was substantially better. Had I watched it as a young kid at the time, I probably would not have stayed to watch the rest of it because the first half just bored me that much. It came back with a wonderful finale with the action, the interactions, and that's where it was at. The A-Team was together. It was amazing, and that's why I'm giving it 3.5.
Well, there you go. And please, by all means, let us know what you think of just the pilot episode. We're going to get to other seasons. But if you have special memories of the pilot episode of the A-Team, by all means, or just feelings of the A-Team itself, let us know. We want to get your thoughts. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those shows that stand the test of time. It's definitely an 80s show. When you watch this, you know this will take place in the 80s. And the pilot is a fun pilot. I don't think you get to see that often with TV shows. And yeah, that's our thoughts on the pilot. Any last words you want to say, Vespor, before we wrap things up?
Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave your thoughts in the comment section.
I think that says it very well. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another The Vesper's Retro Reviews. I'm Ramses.
And I'm Vespor.
And we will see you guys very soon. Take care, everybody.